Hey, we're reading the whole Bible this year. Today is day 254, and we are finishing Ezekiel with chapters 46 through 48. So let's go. So chapter 46 concludes the restoration of temple worship. As we read previously, the east gate, the outer gate, is to always be shut to the temple. That's where the presence of the Lord enters in. Nobody else gets to go that way. The east gate to the inner sanctuary is used some of the time, but never anyone actually passing through it. Everyone enters and exits only through the outer gates of the north and south. If you go in the south gate, you have to leave through the north gate and vice versa. It's meant for you to pass through all the way, for you to participate in and experience the entire place every time you go. Obviously, the priests and Levites enter differently. They go into their little houses and then they enter into inner courtyard area. That's where they're going to offer the sacrifices, and that's where the altar is, and so on. Nobody who is not a priest or Levite is allowed into that inner court. The prince has a special role in all of this, where he is to be offering the sacrifices for the people, and he gets to come in through the inner gate on the east side, but he doesn't enter all the way in. He gets to come right up to the portico, right up to the opening, and then he presents the offerings for the people. And then the priests receive it from there and take it to the altar and so on and so forth. Essentially, this is sort of modifying the Levitical and priestly processes that have previously been laid out. God is establishing a holy encounter with himself for his people that is unique and special and new and holy. The first half of chapter 47 gives us an interesting vision where Ezekiel is then guided out of the temple. And as they look, they see some water flowing out from under the temple, the inner sanctuary. And it's flowing out from there, and it goes just south of the altar, and then it goes all the way out. And as they follow it out, they start measuring how deep it is, because it's just this little trickle of a stream. But as they go deeper and deeper, first it's a foot, and then it's a little more, and then it becomes this river that he can't even cross. And it's this flow of living water from the inner sanctuary where the presence of God comes to meet with the people, and that will flow out through the east gate, which is only used by the Lord in his presence, right? And that is flowing out, and not in a Yahweh leaving anymore, but as proper worship is restored, then living water goes out and brings life to the land and to the people. And then Jesus comes to bring us living water that never runs out. And so it's continuing this idea of restoration and life-giving presence of God flowing out into his people and out through into the world through his people and through proper worship. The second half of 47 going into 48 and concluding not just this vision, but the entire book mostly talks about land distribution. And a lot of commentaries talk about how this is in the millennial kingdom. This is the final layout of how God's people will be arranged, or at least the descendants of Israel who are still part of the kingdom when Jesus reigns on the earth. That somewhat seems to fit with the idea of the day of the Lord kind of preceding all of this, or being part of this, and this being how the worship of God is established once the day of the Lord arrives and all of that. This new layout, now it's set up in stripes all the way across, east to west, straight across, and they're all stacked up, and it goes through a bunch of the tribes, including 2 for Joseph's sons, but we don't remove any of the other sons this time. We've had that a couple of times previously where we've removed, say, Reuben or Simeon or what. They're all in there this time. In fact, theoretically, you could say there's 13, but there's 12 tribal spots, and then there's one holy one right in the middle between Judah and Benjamin, which is roughly where Jerusalem was anyway, except now there's a couple more tribes south of Benjamin, and everybody just, their territory just goes straight across from edge to edge, including this stripe of the holy part of the land, which is set aside a little bit for the Levites, a little bit for the priests of Zadok, the faithful ones that have maintained all the way through. They're technically Levites, they're Aaronic priests, but specifically of the tribe of Zadok, and they followed Yahweh and stayed faithful, whereas many of the priests and Levites abandoned the faith. But only those of Zadok will be placed back in that priestly role in the kingdom. And now when it comes to the gates of the city, the final thing is this representation of all of the people of God coming in through gates named after their tribes. And again, just a representation of the complete presence of the Lord with all of his people restored, or at least representatives of every tribe restored and able to enter into the presence of the Lord. And this time we get the full original 12 listing of the 12 sons of Israel, the namesakes of the 12 gates. So the last thing in this book, the last words in the book say, "And the name of the city from that time on shall be, the Lord is there." And this looks ahead to this time when the Lord is with us, where Revelation foresees a time when the presence of God will be the light within the city, where the presence of Jesus, the Holy Spirit in us, God with us, Emmanuel, that God is with us, the Lord is there, Yahweh is there. This is the dwelling place of the one true creator God. And that is what we're looking forward to. And so the elements of holiness here, the pieces of completeness, the size and everything else, the specific measurements, all of those are all meant to just point us toward the presence of the Lord, and embracing that and looking forward to that, seeking for that time. And so I'm encouraged by that promise that there will be a time when we are all placed together in a land, in a living situation where the Lord is with us. And it will be said from now on that the Lord is there. And that's what our future looks like. That's what the future that Ezekiel sees, is a time when God is fully and completely and permanently with his people. So that's what I'm looking forward to. I'd love to hear your thoughts, questions, and comments. So let's talk about that. Drop that in the chat or on the Bible app or on these videos. Thanks for reading with us. Keep going. Be rad for Jesus.